We're going to take up for a study tonight from the book of Esther. There are only two books in the Bible that are dedicated to women. One of them is the book of Ruth, and the other is the book of Esther, which we're going to study tonight. Starting at the first verse of Esther. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is Ahasuerus which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 170, over 107 and 20 provinces. That is, those days that the king of Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was Shushan the palace. In the third year of his reign, he made a feast of all his provinces and his servants, the power of Persia, Media, and the nobles and the princes of the province before him. When he showed his riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellency, majesty, many days, even hundreds and fourscore days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan in the palace, both unto the great and the small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. When we were white, green, and blue hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple, silver rings, and pillars, marble, beds were of gold, silver, upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black and marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and the royal wine in abundance, according to the state of the king. And the drinks was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house, that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Also Vashti queen made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Hebonah, and Bitha, and Abagtha, and Zestra, and Carcass, and the seven chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the royal crown, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look upon. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. The king said to the wise men, which he knew in times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew the law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshana, and Setra, and Atmatha, and Tarshish, and Meresh, and Marshena, and Mercana, the seven princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, which sat the first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law? Because she has not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. And and me and Memercan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen have not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes, and to all the people that are in the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto the women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes, when it shall be reported. The king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto the king's princes, which have heard of the deeds of queen, Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of Persia and Medius, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Harassas, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. And when the king decree which he shall make shall be published throughout all the empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to the great and to the small. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. After these things, when the wrath of King Arasas was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Then the king said, Then said the king's servant that ministered unto him, Let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint of the officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the palace, and to the house of the women unto the custom of Haggai the king, chamberlain. And let the maidens be which please the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan the palace where was a certain Jew, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jahar, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, and of a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity, which had been carried away with Jeroboam, king of Judah, when Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had never father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took her for his own daughter. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maids were gathered together unto Shushan the palace to the custom of Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custom of Haggai, keeper of the women. And the maid pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her her things for purification, with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maids which were met to be given her out of the king's house, and he preferred her and her maids unto the best palace of the house of the women. Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai charged her that she should not show it. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house, to know how Esther did, and what should be done for her. Now, when every maid's turn was come to go into the king Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of women. For so were the days of their purification accomplished, to wit 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, with other things for the purification of the women. Then thus came every maid unto the king. Whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of women. Unto the king's house. In the evening she went, on the morning she returned into the second house of women, to the custom of Shashahagaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king's no more, except the king delight in her, and that she were called for by name. Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abigail, can't pronounce that word, the uncle of Mordecai, who had been taken her for his daughter, was come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed her. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken unto the king Ahasuerus into the house of royals in the 10th month, is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight, more than all the virgins, so that she set the royal crown upon her head, and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the prophets and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, and Mordecai had charged her, for Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlain, Bigthan and Teresh, of whom which kept the doors, were wrought and so to lay hands on the king Ahasuerus, and the king, and then was known to Mordecai, and told it unto Esther the queen. And Esther certified the king, therefore, in the name of Mordecai. And what inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore they both were hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, and Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did he reverence him. Then the king's servant which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, Why transgress thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman, to which Mordecai's matter would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then Haman was full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone. For they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the 5th month, that is, the month of Nishan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they put Pur, that is, in the lot, before Haman, for the day to day, and from month to month, and 12 months, that is, month of Adar. And Haman said unto the king Ahasuerus, There is a certain people that scattered abroad, dispersed among the people, in all the province of the kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all the people, neither keep they the king's law. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver, into the hands of those that have charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasury. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agathite, and the Jews' enemies. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemed good to thee. They were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded, unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, to every people after their language, in the name of King Ahasuerus it was written, and the seal with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces, to destroy and to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children, women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to take the spoils of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given to every province was published unto all people, that they should be read against that day. The posts went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given to Shushan and the palace, and the king and Haman sat down to drink. But the city Shushan was perplexed. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes, and put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out in the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry. And it came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. In every province whichsoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told her. Then was the king exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hathach, one of the king's chamberlain, whom he had appointed to attend unto her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai, to know what it was and why it was. So Hathach went forth to Mordecai unto the streets of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasury for the Jews to be destroyed. Also he gave him copies of the writing of the decree that was at Shushan, to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spake unto Hathach, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. And all the king's servants and the people of the king's province do know that whether man or woman shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his put him to death, except such as to whom the king hold out the golden scepter, and that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded Esther to answer the things, not with thyself, that thou shalt escape, in the king's house more than all the Jews? For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance shall arise for the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther bade them return to Mordecai this answer: Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast for me, neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maids will fast likewise. And so I will go unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Now it came to pass on the 13th day that Esther put her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house, and the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Then said the king unto Esther, What wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be even given unto thee to half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, If it shall seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto a banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, and he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition? And it shall be granted to thee. What is thy request? Even to half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, My petition and my request is this: If I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king, grant my petition, and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said. Then went Haman forth that day joyfully and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai at the king's gate, that he stood not up nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sat and called for his friends and Zeresh his wife. And Haman told them the glory of his riches and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above all the princes and servants of the king. Haman said, Moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she prepared for myself. But tomorrow and I invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made, of 50 cubits high. And tomorrow speak thou to the king, that Mordecai may hang thereon. Then go thou merrily with the kings unto the banquet. And he caused the gallows to be made. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of the record of the chronicles, that they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told Bigtha and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlain, the keepers of the doors, who sought to lay hands on the king Arasas. And the king said, Honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outer court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai upon the gallows that he had prepared. And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in himself, his heart, to whom would the king delight to honor more than to myself? And Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delighteth to honor, let the royal apparel be brought, and the king which useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown which is set upon his head, and let his apparel and the horses be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that may array the man with all whom the king delighted to honor, and bring him on horseback throughout the streets of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor. Then the king said to Haman, make haste and take apparel and the horse, and thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail thee of all thou hast spoken. Then took Haman's apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the streets of the city, proclaimed him before him, thus shall be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hastened to his house mourning, and having his head covered. And Haman told Zeresh his wife, all his friends, and everything that had befallen him. Then said the wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, if Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him. And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlain, and hastened to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared. So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther, the queen. The king said unto Esther the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? And what shall thy gain be granted thee? And what is thy request? And it shall be performed even to the half of the kingdom. Then Esther the queen answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, and my people to be destroyed, to slay and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondsmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue altogether. The enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he, and where is he that does presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, the adversary, even the enemy, is wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went out unto the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther, the queen. For he saw that was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the palace in the banquet of wines. And Haman had fallen upon the bed whereon Queen Esther was. Then said the king, wilt thou force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, and covered Haman's face. And one of the chamberlains said before the king, behold also a gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who has given good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then said the king, Hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. On the day that did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman the Jews' enemy unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told him what was unto her. And the king told off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai and Esther, and set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman and Hagagite and his devices that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther, so that Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, If I please thee, king, if I have found favor in thy sight, the thing seemeth right before the king, and if I please in thy eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see evil that shall come upon my people, or how can I endure to see destruction of my kinsmen? Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, to Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him that hanged upon the gallows, because he lay hands upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, it is liketh you, in the king's name, and set it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written is the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, may not be reversed. Then were the king's scribes called, and all the times in the third month, in the month of Sivan, and on the 23rd day thereof, it was written, according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to all the lieutenants, and the deputies and rulers of the province, which are from India unto Ethiopia, and 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writings, and according to their language. And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name, sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters to all by post of horseback and riders, of mules and camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their lives, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the powers of the people and provinces that would assault them, both little and ones of women, and take the spoils of their for a prey. Upon one day in all the provinces the king Ahasuerus named me upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is called the month of Adar, the copy of the writing or for a commandment to be given into every province, which was published unto all people, that the Jews. So the post was rode upon mules and camels, and with hastened and pressed on in the king's commandment. And decree was given to Shushan and the palace. And Mordecai went out before the presence of the king, with royal apparel blue and white, and with great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness, and joy and honor. And in every province, in every city withal, wheresoever the king's commandment and decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness at feasting and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Now in the 12th month, that is, the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the month, the king's commandment and his decree drew near to put into execution in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout the provinces, and the king arises to lay his hands on such as sought them hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. And all the rulers of the province, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and the officers, and the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the province. For this man, Mordecai, waxed great and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter, and destruction, and did whatsoever they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan the palace the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And Parshanah and Daphron and Aspatha. I'm going to skip these words. Then 10 sons of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, slew they. So they slew Haman's 10 sons. On the spoils they laid not their hands. On that day the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan in the palace, and 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition, and it shall be granted unto thee, or what is the request further, and it shall be done. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done, and the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together for the 14th day also of the month of Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but of the prey they laid not their hands. But the other Jews that were in the king's province gathered themselves together, and stood for their lives, and had the rest for their enemies, and slew their foes 70 and 75,000. But they laid not their hands upon the prey. And on the 13th day of the month of Adar, on the 14th day of the same rested they, and made it a day of feast and gladness. But the Jews that were in Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews in the village that dwell in the unwalled towns dwell in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month of Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day of the sending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things, and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in the provinces of the king Artaxerxes, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month of Adar, and the 15th day of the same year, and the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which had turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning to a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and sending of portions one to another and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them. Because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, at the Agagite, enemies of the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast that is, lots, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letter that his wicked devices, which he had devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called the day of Purim after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, which he had come unto them. Then the Jews ordained to took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as to it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year, and that these days should be remembered and kept throughout all generations, every family, every province, every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of theirs perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abigail, the Mordecai the Jews, wrote with all authority confirming this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letter unto all the Jews to 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, which wrote of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim and their times appointed, according to all that Mordecai the Jew, Esther, and the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves, for their seed, the matter of the fasting and the cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and is written in the book. And King Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the hand and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and of his might are declared in the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him, and are written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Medes and Persia. For Mordecai the Jew was next unto the king Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted the multitude of his brethren, seeking wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed. We thank you for joining us tonight for the study in the Word. We thank God for all of his goodness and your patience in bearing with us. Truly, we love the Lord today, and we do all that we can to please and satisfy the name of our Lord. Esther was a great woman of God, had great faith, and wrought a great deliverance for her people because of her faithfulness. And it was said that she was brought to the kingdom of a time such as this, and her faithfulness wrought a great deliverance for the children of Israel. We thank God for you joining us tonight, and I'm going to end it with one of my little favorite songs again. He's so good, he's so good, he's so good, so very good, he's so good, he's so good. He has been so good to me. I love the Lord, and I won't take it back. I love the Lord, and I won't take it back. I love the Lord, and I won't take it back. He has been so good to me. He's so good. He's so good. He's so good. So very good. He's so good. He's so good. He has been so good to me. I'll praise his name, and I won't take it back. I'll praise his name, and I won't take it back. I'll praise his name, and I won't take it back. He has been so good to me. He's so good. He's so good. He's so good. So very good. He's so good. He's so good. He has been so good to me. I'll testify. And I won't take it back. I'll testify. And I won't take it back. I'll testify. And I won't take it back. He has been so good to me. He's so good. He's so good. He's so good. So very good. He's so good. He's so good. He has been so good to me. I'll praise his name. And I won't take it back. I'll praise his name. And I won't take it back. I'll praise his name. And I won't take it back. He has been so good to me. He's so good. He's so good. He's so good. So very good. He's so good. He's so good. He has been so good to me. Oh, bless the Lord tonight. We thank God for you joining us for this live broadcast. And we just pray God's blessings upon each of your lives. We pray that God would bless your home, bless your families, bless you on your job. And let peace of God abide in your home right now. In the name of Jesus, we pray. And we thank you for joining us tonight. And join us again on the next time. God bless you and have a great night.